Please consider supporting Black Women United YEG for the protection and advancement of black women and girls in Alberta. You can learn more about them at bwunited.ca. They are always looking for donations and volunteers. So please, again, support Black Women United YEG for the protection and advancement of black women and girls in Alberta. Again, that website is bwunited.ca.
Hello, fellow Creative Control listeners. My name is Mac Cameron. I live in Toronto, and I have been listening to Creative Control with Vish Khanna since episode 119. That featured all 5 members of one of my favorite bands, Constantines. I listened backwards from there and then forwards, and I know it sounds, over the top or cliche, but finding the show changed the course of my life. It inspired me to pursue a career in radio and to do what I can to support the arts in my community and across the country. So I give to Creative Control because I feel like I owe the show and Vish for helping me figure out what the hell to do with my life. Beyond that, I give to Creative Control because I think independent media, especially insightful, entertaining, thoughtful, and thorough independent media, is something that is worth paying for. What I appreciate about Creative Control is Vish's ability to treat Canadian artists, or any artist for that matter, with the seriousness and appreciation he would any other artist. His excellent rapport with people like Steve Albini and the members of Fugazi and Stephen Malcolmus and others have earned him international appreciation. However, it's his trove of interviews with what I consider to be the most exciting generation of Canadian musicians, conducted out of genuine passion and interest, that makes this show so special. I think it is an archive of some really exciting music that is way, way underreported on and appreciated. That's why I contribute to Creative Control with Vish Khanna, and I hope you will do the same.
To make your flexible monthly donation to Creative Control, please visit patreon.com/Creative Control today. I'm Vish's wife, and I will love him no matter what you do. And now he has me on the record saying that.
And if you don't think that fucked me up a little bit, hey, y'all were dope as fuck. Have a good night.
Sam Jay is an outspoken comedian and writer currently based in New York City. Originally from Boston, Sam was last on this show in 2018 to discuss her excellent debut stand-up album, Donna's Daughter, and her role as a writer on Saturday Night Live. She's back again this time to talk about her hilarious new Netflix special, 3 in the Morning, what life in lockdown has been like, what is up with America, and finding the nuance in movements like Me Too. How Saturday Night Live at Home episodes worked for her and other writers on the show, her future plans, and more. A part of the Entertainment One network with the support of listeners like you who follow and subscribe to this podcast and spread the word about it, and make flexible monthly donations at patreon.com/Creative Control, and Massey Hall's concert film series live at masseyhall.com, where you can stream dozens of 30-minute films for free, including performances by past podcast guests like Cold Specs, plus in-kind support from Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, and Granddad's Donuts in Hamilton. This is the 556th episode of Creative Control, featuring the wise and funny Sam Jay, with your host, me, Vish Khanna. Hi, Sam. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Nice to talk to you again. Where in the world are you today?
I am still in New York in my apartment.
It's about the last time. I think the last time we spoke, that's where you were. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. How are things going in New York, per se, given everything that's going on in the world?
I feel like New York is getting a lot better. They've got all the little outside, little drinky, eaty spots where you can, walk up, get a drink, stand in the street. People are at least walking around, which it was kind of a ghost town for a while. So it feels a little bit like the life is coming back a little bit.
Okay, cool. Are you yourself, do you feel like some people like me, afraid to go out into the world and be with the people without the mask and the gloves? What are you like?
Oh no, I'm full. I go out masked. I don't go out without a mask. I believe in the mask. I believe it's real, and I believe you should wear it 100%. I don't even think I crash without wearing a mask. No.
What do you make of the people that aren't wearing the masks? I'm just curious. I know you don't suffer fools. I know you don't like idiots. Who does? But you in particular, I know you don't like them. What do you make of the people who are against the masks and the protocols?
I was just arguing with my cousin about it because she's a person who doesn't believe in the mask, and I just think people always want to think they're smarter than like the professionals. I don't know why, but they like to believe that for some reason. They know something everybody else doesn't, and usually it's not true.
It's generally not true, I think. We don't know as much as we like to think. Well, congratulations on your new special. I was watching it last night. Now, this is a weird question because I assume you have seen it. When's the last time you watched your new special? I'm just curious.
Maybe like 2 months ago.
So 2 months ago, you're watching this special. We're in the midst of a pandemic. You're talking about air travel. You're in front of a live audience. What does that feel like for you? Is it surreal to see this thing that you made presumably well before there was a pandemic now out in the world, and you're talking about things we kind of can't do at the moment?
It's a little 20. It's, you know what? It's weird because yes and no. You know, I watch it and I'm like, oh man, the world was so different then. But then you turn on the news and like there's people fighting at the airport at Spirit Airlines. So you're like, maybe not so much.
You filmed this in Atlanta, which you have roots in, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Roughly when did you record it?
I recorded it February 22nd.
February 22nd in the year 2019.
2020.
You recorded it this year? I didn't realize it was that new. Okay. So the news was kind of out. I didn't realize it. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that. I thought this was done like a long time ago. So
before everything shut down. So why are you saying that my materials sounded dated and you felt it was old?
I was not implying that in any way, shape, or form. I just was like, oh, this must have been done well before the thing. So February 22nd, 2020, this was all circulating. What was the vibe in the room like? Were people wearing the mask? Were they afraid? What was going on?
It wasn't really real at that point. It was just like murmurs of a thing in February. You know, like I feel like it wasn't real yet. So, I mean, I wasn't wearing a mask. I think I wore one on the plane because my girl made me because I have lupus. Oh. So she was kind of ahead of it all. So she made me wear them in the airport and stuff. But once we were like off the plane and we weren't thinking about it, we were just kind of moving around and everybody was doing that at that time.
Okay. So it was a chill vibe. People were there to laugh. That sort of stress and tension was in the air, but not real, as you say.
I don't even think it was in the air. I think there was like a few people, like I was on guard because I had lupus, but I don't think anybody else cared. And it wasn't like even when we were on the plane, there was like tons of masks. You just saw a few people here and there.
Okay. So societally, you're watching this thing that was filmed a few months ago, and you get what I'm saying about how a lot of us are going to watch it and be like, oh, I miss doing that. I miss being able to go to a comedy club or a movie or what have you. How do you feel as a comedian, as a performer? Because I'm guessing, well, I guess I should ask, when's the last time you performed stand-up beyond this special?
Well, last week, but it was outside at this little amphitheater in a park that they're starting to do little pop-up outside shows in New York. So that was the second time, because I did one like 2 months before that, but pretty spaced out. Not like how I used to be able to go up and do stand-up every night, you know? Right. It's been pretty spacey. And I would say the special was the last time I did it, and a very long since then.
So how do you feel as a creative person and a comedian when, you know, this whole part of your life is compromised at the very least? You're able to do some semblance of it. By the way, have you done any of the Zoom comedy or the virtual comedy stuff?
I mean, I've done like podcasts, but I haven't done like a stand-up show on Zoom. I don't think that would feel good to me.
Right.
Because I need to feel that connection, and I just feel so like disconnected.
Yeah.
In a way that I'm not interested in pursuing. But I don't know. It sucks, but it's so hard because it's like it sucks for everybody, and no one's able to do the things they want to do. And I'm no different in the fact that I can't go do a comedy show, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, it's true. You're looking at the landscape, and this is happening to everyone. I appreciate that. Those spaced out shows that you did, was that weird? Was it weird to do that? Or was it, because I watched Dave Chappelle's. I feel like the last time you were on the show, We talked about Dave Chappelle again, but he just put out this, did you see the Dave Chappelle thing, the thing on YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he did a thing and people were all spaced out and it seemed fine. I mean, there wasn't as gales of laughter because there weren't that many people.
Right.
What was your experience like not getting the full laughter that you would expect?
It was fine. You know what I mean? I think also it's like everything is conditional. So when you don't have it at all, even though that laughter was great,
Yeah.
It was like, oh, at least I know like people still want to laugh and like we can talk about the stuff that's actually going on now and still find the funny in it. And like, it just gives you a sense of like, oh, humanity's, we're all right. We'll find it.
Yeah. One of the things we talked about the last time was kind of the innovations of your last album in terms of incorporating music and hip hop and kind of that kind of production styles, almost like skits and stuff. I remember we talked about a little bit. This is a Netflix special. First of all, that's amazing. I'm sure, were you like over the moon to get a Netflix special? Because not everyone can get one.
Yeah, I was super excited.
So when you get told this is approved, you're gonna do it, did you have those big ideas, the ambitious concepts, or did you think, no? I mean, there's a little bit of that, not too much, but you did pretty much a straight stand-up special, a little bit of an intro. Nice haircut, by the way. It looks great.
Thank you. I mean, I think it still is driven by concepts. You know what I mean? I just think it's different mediums, so the concepts are different. Like the intro to me feels like an extension of the album. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways that I enjoy. I liked the way it was shot. I feel like it's not shot in the same vein as the things you typically see on Netflix, and that was intentional and a choice for sure. And even just the way, the dirty shots, the behind the head shots and all that stuff, I just wanted people to feel like drawn in and pulled into the room. I find that I watch a lot of specials and you feel so separate from the experience. And so I was trying to think of ways to really make people feel like they're there and a part of it. And also to make it feel like an important moment without it feeling like I'm trying to be bigger than I am or where I am in my career. You know what I'm saying? So there was a lot of intent in it for sure. Just, I feel like in different ways.
Did you have a hand in the editing? Because there's a couple of moments where you're doing a joke and it's a physical joke. And I noticed the camera did this quick edit thing to kind of emphasize your body movement. And I thought that was kind of a cool, that's what you're kind of talking about, I think. Did you have a hand in that?
Yeah, I was in the editing for sure. I was in every part, editing, coloring, lighting.
It's your thing. You wanted to be, I feel like.
Across all mediums of the thing for sure.
That speaks a bit to your personality, right? Like it's your name, it's your thing. You're not going to let someone else, do something that you're not cool with, right?
Yeah, I mean, I worked very hard to get to that space to be able to do it. And I had somewhat of a vision for it, and then, I linked up with Chris Mercado, who was the director, and we just really started to talk mood, and he would send me all these storyboards and mood boards, and we were really just getting into how do we want this thing to feel, which I also think is just as important as the jokes. It's just how it all was going to look and feel. And when I watch it, it's a straight special, but it doesn't feel or look to me like anything I've seen, and I appreciate that about it.
And I do too. And I will backtrack on what I said when I suggested it was a normal straight special. I don't think that's true. You're right. There's a lot of aesthetic flourishes in it that I really appreciate it. In terms of maybe your perspective on, let me see if I've got this straight. Is this technically your second hour, so to speak, in comedy terms?
Yeah, because I did an hour on the album.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, but it's my first tape hour special.
Did you find? Yeah, that's right. So you made an audio record, is basically what you're saying, and now this is a full-on video. Did you find playing to a camera to be strange, as opposed to?
I've done that before. I have a Netflix. I mean, I have a Netflix 15. I have a Comedy Central half hour. So, and I think those things were essential in making me comfortable, Yeah. So I'm glad those things came first, because it gave me that level of comfortability on stage that I don't think I would have had I not had those experiences prior to.
Right. Okay. In terms of your perspective on maybe your growth or as a person between the 2 hours, in terms of what you felt comfortable covering on the new special, do you see any difference between your kind of your evolution as a person, maybe your confidence levels? Do you see that in the two specials, in the 2 hours?
Yeah, I definitely feel more confident. When I watch the hour, I'm like, oh, you've grown a lot. You're more confident up there. You're more comfortable. You can sit in the awkwardness a little longer than you used to be able to. You're more confident in where you're driving the ship, and also just more confident in the jokes, and my ability to tell them, and that just comes with repetition.
That's it's experience more than. Is there anything about the moment, culturally, that's giving you more confidence to speak out or anything like that? We are in like particularly outspoken times, and you have an interesting take on Me Too in the special, for example. I just wonder if it's just you evolving and experiencing things, or is it the fact that we are all in a place of feeling more outspoken and confident, calling people out, talking about how we really feel? Is it some combination of those things?
I mean, maybe. I did it on February 22nd. I feel like if you follow my work, though, I've always kind of been a person that says the thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And doesn't back off of stuff. And so in that regard, that's just what I do. You know what I mean? And how I feel effective in the space and in the art form. But sure, I'm affected by the world and I'm in it. So I can't take that away from it either.
Yeah. Do you get criticized for some of your more, like, I think of you as a progressive person, but when you take a stand, and it's not you take a nuanced approach to something like Me Too. What has the reception been like among your colleagues or your peers or your friends to that? Because I don't hear many people taking on a take like that, if that makes any sense. What kind of feedback do you get?
I mean, I don't know if I've sat and had a specific conversation about like, what do people think? What's how people going like, oh, it's funny. You know what I mean? Which is the first goal is just for it to be funny. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when I do it, people laugh. So I'm like, okay, it's funny. And then I've talked to like, people after shows and women after shows. And a lot of times they thank me for saying what I'm saying because I think I do things authentically. And so like people get that this is coming from a place of love for women and being a woman and wanting us to be more empowered and wanting us to take that power instead of waiting for someone to give it to us. And that's just the root of the joke. There's no malice or ill will towards anyone. It's just really rooted in that. And I think people feel that when they hear it.
Okay. I did, but I was surprised because it's risky sometimes these days to make to tweet the wrong thing, to say the wrong thing in an interview. And I was watching your special last night with my wife and I was like, whoa, it was very funny. Like, to your point, very funny. Your take on feminism, white people and feminism and Me Too. I was like, wow, like, I don't know that I have the guts to say something like that, but I appreciate that you did. And like you say, you've always kind of said how you really feel about things, right?
Yeah, I try to. I mean, I think, if I'm not being authentic to my voice, then I'm doing myself a disservice first and foremost, but also then I'm not giving what I could give to the world. And so, yeah, I definitely try to do that. Yeah.
So February 22nd is when you recorded this thing, this special rather. Since then, America has shifted radically again. There's lots of socio-cultural, political upheaval. What is your perspective on, I don't want to say things generally, but in your country right now, there are so many things and they kind of are interweaving and interconnected, I think, that I don't want to just say Black Lives Matter, the handling of the pandemic, what have you. What's your general take and feel on what's going on right now?
I mean, I think just America is just, it's, you can only build on lies for so long and before it all comes crashing down, and I just think we're just at a time where, people are tired of waiting and people are demanding. People are tired of this false idea that if, we're patient enough, then the thing will just fix itself. And I think people are finally coming to a place where it's like, no, it's not going to fix itself. People have to make action to fix it. You know what I mean? And I think the pandemic is just a unfortunately, like a residual effect. The handling of it, that is just a residual effect of all of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's people digging their heels in the sand on what they believe America is and what their rights are and their freedoms are. But it's really because they're just afraid because everything is changing.
Well, everything's changing, but you make a very profound and funny statement in this special about how America is trash. Am I allowed to say that as a Canadian? I don't know. Am I going to get in trouble? I don't mean to insult you. But I'm like that. You said it. You said it. That's true. Do you want to? I mean, you kind of just said that by not. That was the long version, I think, of what you're saying is that Americans are. What did Malcolm X say? The chickens are coming home to roost. Like, this is a recognition. This has got to be a reckoning and a recognition of what America really is.
Yep.
That's kind of what you're getting at in that part of your special, right?
Yeah, exactly. Is that these things don't just happen. And I think a lot of times as Americans, we like to be like, well, I don't know how we got here. And it's like, well, it's quite clear. There's been several markers along the way. So like, why are we sitting here acting surprised? So
on the one hand, you've recognized this and said it in your special. Do you feel like that realization is spreading now? That it's not, that the systemic, the foundation of your country is really led us to this exact bizarre moment where you have, and a lot of people around the world have the worst possible leadership at the worst possible time, and everything that has been building, in your case, for centuries, certainly in terms of media, decades, like this is all happening. Do you think that realization is actually starting to pervade the general consciousness?
I do think people are just kind of like, oh, maybe, you see it all the time on Twitter where it's like, oh, maybe we're the third world country. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's been kind of an illusion of all this grandeur, but the fact is that this stuff, when you start to dig under the surface, is not really there, for sure.
One of the things that you just mentioned, that you see it on Twitter, but the vacuums. We all seem to live and exist in these vacuums where, we think there's no way someone would be racist in 2020 because that's not what I'm seeing on my social media feed and in my conversations with people. Where is this coming from? That to me is a major revelation for most people too. Like, no, it's what people of color have been saying this whole time. You have no idea what we go through. Or as women trying to take the subway or whatever, like you don't know what it's like.
Right, because we don't have the privilege of the vacuum.
Exactly. Yeah, so that seems to be an issue too. Do you feel like, I've been bringing this up a lot on the show and I'm maybe getting tired of saying it, but I feel like we are very fractured despite our internet connectivity. It feels like our information sources are all over the place and we don't agree with each other on facts. Like, do you see that?
Yeah, everybody's getting their own version of the truth and running with it, and nobody's just living in the actual reality of truth. And we're coming to a space where people are deciding what the truth is. They're like, that's my truth, which I hate. I hate that statement. Yeah. It's like either the truth or it's not. But that's where we are, and I don't really know. I just think the whole thing's gonna look different when all the smoke clears, but in a good way. I really do believe it's gonna be in a better way.
One of the reasons I gravitated towards comedy as a fan, I mean, we all have our different reasons. I mean, obviously it was to laugh, but I also think that comedy is really, when it's great, it's truth-telling. It cuts through all this. I don't know. What do you make of this? I feel like comedians, for whatever reason, we have decided the comedian can tell us the actual truth and say the things we can't say or think the things we can't think. And we put this sort of burden on the comedian. That's been the tradition, I think, for a long time, at least 40, 50, 60 years. Like, we trust the comedian to cut through the crap and tell us the truth. Is the comedian's place as powerful as it ever has been, or do you think it's diminished in any way?
I don't know. I don't know if I know the answer to that. I think it depends on the comedian.
Yeah. I just don't know. Like, satire has taken on this. I feel like satire used to cut through, and now it's just part of the noise. And that's where I'm at with it. Like,
Yeah, sometimes, and then I think sometimes there's some people cutting through. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's a big question, and it's hard to home in on it. But as someone in comedy, you know, and as someone who's just released a special that is very steeped in truth telling, I would say, whether it's again, I know it's not your truth. Actually, that's an interesting point. Based on what you were just saying, you're conveying how you feel about things. Does it feel true in a general sense, or is that just your truth, so to speak?
I mean, I feel like it's when I say that your truth statement, I mean that when people support their delusions. You know what I mean? When it's like, oh, it's clear that Black people are being like killed by the police, and then someone's like, well, that's not my truth or my reality, so thus it is not so. I don't believe in that type of stuff. But definitely, this is my perspective. You know what I mean? This is my POV, 100%. And you may not share that point of view, and that's fine.
So since the hour, you say you've done a couple of stand-up gigs, and I don't know, have you been writing also in that time period? Yeah,
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, keeping the wheels turning as much as I can.
Now, the last time we spoke, you were writing for Saturday Night Live. Is that still the case?
Yep.
Okay. So based on everything that's happened since you recorded that special, has what's been going on informed you as a writer, as a comedian?
I mean, yeah, because I'm experiencing it, and my experiences inform me. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I find the things I want to talk about, and the things I want to say, or the things I feel are need to be said, or are valuable and could help the conversation be moved or add to it. So yeah, in that regard, yes.
It's coming through in the, like, you have, I don't mean to say you have material on this crisis or crises, but you kind of do, like, you've been working towards.
I have thoughts, I'm thinking about it,
okay.
You know, and I have ideas because I'm experiencing it, and comedy just happens to be how I express myself. So yeah, for sure, you know what I mean? I've definitely been observing and being like, oh, that's interesting.
Right. Okay.
You know?
So we have to wait to see how this is presented, how your takes are going to be presented. Do you have a sense, like, how, as a comedian, am I going to get these things out into the world? Is it another special? Do you know yet?
I don't know.
No one knows. No one really knows. No one really knows. Speaking of not knowing, I watched the virtual Saturday Night Lives. Saturday Night Live at home. Mm-hmm. What was that like to work on? I have no concept of how you guys came up with it. My take on it was cast members seemed to be coming up with things and doing their best at home. But as a writer on the show, were you heavily involved in all of that stuff? Yeah,
we were writing still. You know what I mean? It was just, you know, disjointed and not the way we would have liked to do it. But definitely still writing and contributing 100%. Yeah.
Do you have, like, Zoom writer rooms? Is that how it would work?
Yeah.
Okay. And so what did you make of the final, like, you guys, my understanding is the show is it right? The show might come back in person? Is that the plan?
I have no idea.
You don't know?
I haven't heard of it.
I read a news report. I thought you would get a staff memo before I would know. You don't know anything. Okay. I just wonder what you made of how it turned out, because that was what a weird time. Like, we can experiment with so many things, and on some level it's great. But did you think were there things that people were like, yeah, we tried some things and that really worked and that didn't? Like, were you workshopping each week?
I mean, I feel like no and yes. You know what I mean? Like, a little bit of both going on. I mean, because we didn't know what it was going to look like. So I feel like the first one was just tricky, and we saw things we didn't like. And we were like, hey, let's try not to do that on the second one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we saw something we didn't like, and it was kind of just like trial by fire because no one had ever done it before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I felt like by the last one, we were like, oh, this is how to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we found a bit of a groove where I really dug the last one. I was like, oh, this feels like in the swing.
Okay. Were there particular, I think I asked you this last time, just because I know it's a collective process, but were there particular things you were happy about that you expressed or wrote in that batch of things where you're like, I'm glad that got on, or that really, I'm proud of that? Was there anything like that?
And the SNL from Home stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Me and Gary Richardson wrote a sketch about Chris getting out of jail early because of Corona.
That was great. And he can't he's trying to hook up with people.
Yeah, it was just stupid. So it was just.
I thought I enjoyed that immensely. I'm glad to know. You know, it's so what a weird thing, right? You're behind the scenes and that's your role, but I can't. Sometimes you can pick out a writer's sensibility if you follow a show and you follow the writer. But I'm so pleased to know that that was you. I didn't know. I'm sorry, but that was really funny. Yeah, it's great. So in terms of future plans, we've been shrugging to each other about what's next. Do you have a sense of what's next for you beyond this special? And I guess SNL, you don't know, but it might be coming up in the fall. What do you got planned?
I mean, I have some stuff I'm working on. I can't really talk about it, but I have some things I'm working on and some ideas of things, you know?
Yeah.
We'll see.
You being nebulous in a time of great uncertainty? I don't need this. I need solid information. Everything is so confusing. Please tell me one solid thing. What do you, by the way, you say you've been observing things, you've been thinking about things. Sam J, do you have like reputable, regular sources of information? I've been asking this a little bit because I'm just curious. I read what I read. Do you go to someone and be like, I think that's right?
Nah, I just kind of like go on Twitter, and if I see something I want to know more about, then I just like start doing my own research online and just kind of like going down my own like rabbit holes with things.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, I think that's what everyone's doing, and it's good and bad, don't you think?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I don't. It's been so spread out, and I feel like when I was younger, when I think about it, that's why I kind of went at the question, because I feel like when I was younger, I knew the people that my parents were going to for information. It was like, we watch the news, we trust this information, and this is where we get our information. And now it is just insane. You don't even know who's actual journalists or who's just saying stuff, and like it's so hard to decipher any of it. And then when we have a president who's also like lying and misleading people and giving misleading information, it's just so hard to keep track of any of it. And so you really do have to kind of go down your own little rabbit holes and find what you feel is credible and just kind of move with that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of credible sources, Sam, where would you send people to learn more about you on the internet?
Oh man, I don't. Nowhere good. Nowhere is actually like,
just go on Twitter and enter.
Yeah, like just follow my Twitter. But like,
okay, well, follow your Twitter, and the new special is on Netflix, and it's wonderful. And Sam, I always like talking to you, and I appreciate your time. So thanks for being back on the show and chatting with me, and best of luck with everything in the future.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. It's always a pleasure talking to you as well.
Very, very special thanks to Sam J for returning to this show and to be on this, what is it, the 556th episode? That's right, the 556th episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Entertainment One podcast network and is available on all Apple and Google platforms and Spotify and everything else. If you can't find an episode that you've heard about and you're looking for it, or if you want to learn more about me and sign up for my regularly scheduled newsletter, please visit my website, vishkhanna.com. You can also like Creative Control on Facebook, follow the show on Twitter at VishCreative, or me directly at VishKhanna. Also visit patreon.com/Creative Control to make a flexible monthly donation to keep this podcast going. Again, $6 or more gets you access to exclusive audio content, usually from my archives of past interviews I've done preceding this show. So again, go to patreon.com/Creative Control and feast on the treasures that are not part of the regular show. Thanks again to live@masseyhall.com, where you can watch beautifully captured concerts by great Canadian artists. Again, live@masseyhall.com. Also thanks to Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, Planet Bean Coffee, and Granddad's Donuts for their in-kind support for this show. As always, thanks to my good pal Jim Guthrie for lending me some music for the podcast. You can learn more about Jim at jimguthrie.org. And finally, thank you for listening to this episode with Sam. I hope you'll check out Sam's special, 3 in the morning, when it's out. As I'm speaking, it's not quite out, but it'll be out soon. It's out on Netflix. Go to Netflix and find Sam's great new special. And also, thanks for subscribing to the podcast if that's something you're you're doing now or thinking of doing. Either way, that would be great. Tell your friends about the show and all that sort of stuff. And that is it. I will talk to you very, very soon. Goodbye for now.